When was the last time you looked in the mirror and actually liked the person staring back at you? Not just your appearance, but your choices, your habits, your patterns, your life as a whole. Too many people cannot answer that question honestly and confidently. And that is why they feel empty inside, no matter how much love they receive from others. Here is the hard truth. The most important relationship you will ever have is not with your partner, your friends, or your family. It is the relationship you have with yourself. Before the messages, before the validation, before the attention, there is you. When that relationship is broken, nothing else in your life feels truly right. You can have the best job, an exciting romance, and all the material success you thought you wanted. But without self-love, it all feels temporary, fragile, and unreal. Self-love is not selfish. It is survival. It is setting a standard for how you deserve to be treated and refusing to negotiate it. It is learning to have your own back when no one else does. It is protecting your energy when the world tries to drain it. It is believing in your worth even when surrounded by people who cannot see it. In this video, you are going to learn how to love yourself more than anyone else. Not in a way that closes you off from the world, but in a way that makes you stronger, calmer, and more unshakable. Because once you stop abandoning yourself, you will stop accepting less than you deserve from everyone else. So if this message resonates with you, hit subscribe and leave a comment sharing what spoke to you. Let us walk this path of self-respect together. Number 1. Building a loving relationship with yourself. When was the last time you felt genuinely proud of yourself as a person? Not for what you achieved, not for a promotion, a relationship, or someone else's approval, but simply for who you are and how you live. Most people never really think about this. They spend their lives chasing love and validation from everyone around them, while quietly neglecting the most important relationship they will ever have, the one they have with themselves. You cannot escape yourself. No matter where you go, what you do, or who you are with, you always bring yourself into every moment. If that inner relationship is weak or neglected, then everything in your life feels slightly off, even when it looks fine from the outside. The truth is, self-love is not an accident. It does not magically appear when life is easy or when people start treating you better. Self-love is something you build on purpose, through small choices and repeated actions. It begins with the way you speak to yourself. If every mistake you make becomes a reason to attack yourself, to call yourself names, to tell yourself you are worthless, you are not building love. You are building fear. Imagine talking that way to a child you care about. You would never do it because you know it would destroy their spirit. So why is it acceptable to speak to yourself in a way you would never speak to anyone you truly love? Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. When you fail, do not say, "I am hopeless." Say, "I do not like this result, but I can learn, I can adjust, I can do better next time." This is how self-love sounds in your mind. Self-love also grows when you keep promises to yourself. Every small promise you keep is a brick of self-respect. Go to bed when you said you would. Take the walk you promised yourself. Drink the water, do the reading, finish the task you quietly committed to. These actions look small, but together they send a powerful message. I can trust myself. When I say I will, I do. Over time, that trust becomes unshakable. You stop needing others to constantly reassure you because you already know you are reliable inside. Another part of building a loving relationship with yourself is spending intentional time alone. You cannot truly love someone you never take time to know. That includes you. When your life is always loud, always busy, always filled with other people's problems, you only see a surface-level version of yourself. You never ask deeper questions. What do I actually want? What kind of life feels honest to me? What values do I refuse to betray anymore? Moments of solitude, even short ones, help you listen to yourself instead of just reacting to everything around you. And finally, self-love means forgiveness. That means letting go of the mistakes you have been punishing yourself for. It does not mean pretending those mistakes were acceptable. It means deciding they no longer get to control you. Every time you forgive yourself, you create space for growth instead of staying stuck inside guilt and shame. Over time, these practices change everything. You start to feel like you have your own back. You stop chasing validation from people who cannot or will not give it. You stop accepting treatment that insults your worth. A loving relationship with yourself becomes a foundation of every other relationship. If you respect yourself, you naturally require respect from others. If you value yourself deeply, you stop allowing people to treat you like you are disposable. And if you truly love yourself, you will never again beg for the kind of love you can already give yourself. And once that foundation is set, something powerful happens. Happiness stops feeling random, rare, and out of reach. It becomes something you can actually build. Number 2, why self-love is the foundation of true happiness. What if I told you that every moment of happiness you have ever felt, every burst of joy, every peaceful sigh, has been filtered through the way you see yourself? Think about it for a moment. Two people can have almost the exact same circumstances, similar jobs, similar incomes, similar relationships, similar opportunities. Yet one feels quietly content, while the other feels constantly unfulfilled, restless, and unsatisfied. The difference is not luck, it is self-perception, and at the core of that, self-love. Without self-love, happiness is always temporary, always fragile, always dependent on something or someone outside of you. We are often told that happiness comes from achievements, relationships, or possessions. Get the promotion. Find the perfect partner. Buy the dream home. Then you will finally feel complete. And yes, those things can bring excitement. They can make life easier, more comfortable, and more interesting. But without self-love, the feeling always fades, and you are left chasing the next big thing, hoping it will finally fill the gap inside. It never does. Why? Because happiness built only on external things is like building a house directly on sand. The moment those things change, and they always do, the entire structure shifts and eventually collapses. Self-love is the solid ground. It is the foundation that makes happiness stable. When you value yourself, you stop looking for permission to feel good about your life. You stop waiting for others to validate your worth before you allow yourself to feel at peace. It is like turning on a light inside you that no one else can switch off. Even when life gets hard, and it will, you still have that inner stability, that quiet confidence that says, I am enough, even in this storm. But here is the challenge. Most people avoid building self-love because it requires unlearning years of conditioning. From an early age, many of us are taught that our worth depends on our performance, our appearance, and how much we please others. We are rewarded for fitting in, for meeting expectations, for being good in someone else's eyes. Over time, this creates a dangerous habit. We start outsourcing our happiness. We start believing that how we feel about ourselves must be decided by grades, numbers, followers, comments, or another person's approval. We forget that we have the power to give ourselves permission to be enough without anyone else's agreement. True happiness begins when you reverse this pattern. It begins the day you wake up and decide, I do not need today to go perfectly for me to feel good about who I am. It is when you can sit alone and still feel whole. It is when you can receive love from others, but not depend on it to survive emotionally. Self-love does not make you arrogant. It makes you free. It allows you to enjoy the highs without clinging to them, and to endure the lows without falling apart. When your happiness grows from self-love, everything else in life improves. Your relationships become healthier because you are no longer entering them from a place of emptiness and need. You can love others deeply without losing yourself in the process. Your work becomes more fulfilling, not just because of success, but because it aligns with your values and with who you are becoming. The mistake most people make is trying to skip self-love and go straight to happiness. It is like planting flowers in toxic soil. They might bloom for a moment, but they will not last. Self-love is the soil. It is what makes joy sustainable. Without it, you are always at the mercy of circumstances. With it, you become unshakable. And the best part is, self-love is something you can start building today in very small ways. By speaking more kindly to yourself. By honoring your needs without unnecessary guilt. By setting boundaries that protect your energy, even when others do not understand. Every time you do these things, you strengthen your foundation. And slowly, happiness stops being something you chase endlessly and becomes something you quietly live. Number 3, setting boundaries without feeling guilty. Why is it that the moment we try to protect our time, our energy, or our peace, we start to feel guilty? Why do so many of us say yes when every part of us is silently screaming no? The answer is simple but uncomfortable. We have been trained to believe that putting ourselves first is selfish, so we sacrifice our well-being for the comfort of others, telling ourselves this means we are good people. In reality, it mostly means we become exhausted, resentful, and disconnected from ourselves. Boundaries are not walls, they are doors. Doors you have the right to open and close based on what is healthy for you. Without boundaries, life becomes chaotic. People start expecting more than you can honestly give, and you start giving more than you can safely handle. Over time, you lose your sense of self. You become so used to meeting everyone else's needs that you forget you have your own. And here is the cruel part. The more you give without boundaries, the less people value what you give. Think about the friend who is always available at any hour, no matter what. Or the coworker who never says no, no matter how overloaded they already are. These people are rarely respected more because of their constant availability. In fact, they are often taken for granted or quietly expected to keep giving endlessly. Boundaries do not push people away. They teach people how to treat you. The guilt you feel when you set a boundary is not proof that you are doing something wrong. It is proof that you are breaking an old pattern. That uncomfortable sensation is just your mind adjusting to a new way of living. You have been programmed to believe that your worth comes from how much you do for others. So when you start protecting yourself, it feels like you are taking something away from them. But in reality, you are giving them something far more valuable, the best version of you, not the drained, resentful version. Setting boundaries also means being willing to disappoint people. You cannot live a life of real self-respect and please everyone at the same time. If someone's love or respect for you depends on you constantly overextending yourself, then it is not love and it is not respect. It is dependence, pressure, and control. A person who truly cares for you will not punish you for having limits. Here is the truth. Boundaries do not just protect your time, they protect your identity. Without them, you say yes to so many things you do not want, that your days start to belong to everyone but you. Eventually, you wake up and realize you are living a life that does not feel like yours. And when you lose touch with who you are, self-love becomes almost impossible. You cannot love a version of yourself that is constantly betraying your own needs. Practical boundaries can be very simple. Not answering certain calls after a specific hour. Saying no to events that leave you drained instead of pretending you are fine. Refusing to engage in conversations that are toxic, even if they are normal in your environment. Taking time for yourself, even when others do not fully understand. The key is consistency. A boundary you set but constantly break is not truly a boundary. It is only a suggestion. The more you practice setting and keeping boundaries, the more natural it becomes. And then something powerful happens. Your guilt begins to fade. You realize that the people who truly matter respect your limits. And the ones who do not respect them start to fall away, making space for relationships that are healthier and more balanced. You stop feeling bad for protecting your peace because you finally understand it is the only way to live honestly. In the end, boundaries are self-love in action. They say, I value myself enough to protect what matters to me. When you live this way, your relationships improve. You attract people who respect you for who you are, not just for how much you can give. And most importantly, you stop betraying yourself for the sake of others, and you start building a life that feels right, not just one that looks acceptable. Number 4, the power of saying no to protect your energy. When was the last time you said no without giving a long excuse, without apologizing excessively, without feeling like you had to justify it? For many people, that moment is rare. We live in a culture that celebrates busyness over true commitment and treats constant availability as a sign of value. But here is the reality. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, you are saying no to yourself. Over time, those stolen moments, that depleted energy, and that silent resentment cost you far more than you realize. Saying no is not about rejecting people. It is about protecting the most precious resource you have, your energy. You can always make more money. You can rebuild certain relationships. But once your energy is gone, so is your ability to show up fully in life. Without energy, you cannot create. You cannot connect deeply. You cannot even enjoy the things you work so hard for. Energy is your life force. If you do not guard it fiercely, the world will drain it without hesitation. The problem is, most people believe that saying no will make them selfish, rude, or unkind. They imagine others labeling them as difficult or uncaring. But here is the truth. People who truly respect you will also respect your no. The ones who benefit most from your lack of boundaries are usually the first to make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. And that is the clearest sign that the no was necessary. Think of your energy like a bank account. Every commitment, every conversation, every problem you take on is a withdrawal. If you never say no, you will eventually run into emotional bankruptcy. The symptoms are obvious: burnout, resentment, loss of motivation, even physical exhaustion and illness. Your body and mind are constantly warning you when you are giving too much. If you ignore those signals, the cost will be higher than you expect. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the importance of guarding the inner citadel, the inner fortress of your mind and soul. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every invitation is worth accepting. Saying no is your way of closing the gate before an unnecessary siege drains your strength. But here is the thing. The first few times you say no, it will feel uncomfortable. You have been conditioned to believe that your worth is tied to how much you do for other people. Breaking that pattern means facing the discomfort of change. That awkward feeling is not a sign you are doing something wrong. It is evidence that you are reclaiming control over your life. So here are some practical steps. Before you agree to anything, pause and ask yourself, does this align with my real priorities right now? Will this energize me or will it drain me? If I say yes to this, what will I have to say no to in return? These questions shift your focus from pleasing others to protecting yourself. Over time, you discover something powerful. The world does not end when you say no. The people who truly value you adjust and understand. The ones who do not quietly fade away, making room for connections that are healthier and more respectful. When you start saying no with calm confidence, something changes inside you. You begin to trust yourself more. You stop over-explaining. You stop feeling like you owe everyone access to your time and energy. You start making decisions that leave you feeling lighter instead of weighed down. Ultimately, saying no is one of the purest forms of self-love. It says, I respect my time, my health, and my peace enough to protect them. When you live this way, you realize you are not shutting people out. You are simply choosing who and what gets to be part of your life. You are not rejecting the world. You are making sure you do not reject yourself in the process. Number 5. Letting go of people who do not value you. How many times have you stayed in someone's life long after they stop treating you like you matter? How many times have you made excuses for their behavior, convinced yourself they will eventually change, or told yourself that maybe you are just expecting too much? Here is the uncomfortable truth. Every moment you spend holding on to people who do not truly value you is a moment you are stealing from yourself. Letting go is hard, not because you do not know this person is bad for you, but because your heart gets attached to the idea of who they were, to the memories you made, to their potential, to the way they once made you feel. You hold on, hoping they will return to that older version you still miss, while ignoring the reality of who they are right now. This is where self-love and self-respect collide, because you cannot honestly claim to value yourself while you continue to invest time, energy, and emotion into someone who has shown you clearly and consistently through their actions that they do not. When someone truly values you, you do not have to constantly question it. You do not have to decode mixed signals, obsess over every message, or chase them for attention. Their respect, their care, their presence are steady and consistent. Anything less than that is not love. It is tolerance, convenience, or habit. The Stoics understood deeply the necessity of detachment. Epictetus taught that we suffer not from loss itself, but from our attachment to the illusion that we can control it. We convince ourselves that if we just try harder, give more, or change ourselves enough, we will finally make them see our worth. But here is the truth. Your worth is not something you negotiate into existence. It is not a discount item on the emotional market. Your worth exists fully, quietly, and unshakably, whether anyone else recognizes it or not. When you let go of people who do not value you, it is not about anger, punishment, or revenge. It is about creating space for relationships that nourish you instead of draining you dry. It is about finally having the time and energy to pour into your own growth, your own joy, and your own peace. And yes, there will be a void at first, an empty silence where their chaos used to be. But in that silence, something beautiful happens. You start to hear yourself again. One of the hardest lessons you will ever learn is that some people are only meant to be part of a chapter, not the entire story. Holding on past their exit point does not keep the story alive. It only keeps you stuck in a plot line that goes nowhere. Practically speaking, letting go is more than creating physical distance. It is emotional detachment. It is choosing not to stalk their social media. It is refusing to replay old conversations in your mind like a highlight reel. It is catching yourself when you start rewriting the past in a way that makes them look kinder, more present, and more loving than they really were. It is choosing reality over nostalgia, truth over fantasy. You will know you have truly let go when you no longer need closure from them because you have given it to yourself. When you are not waiting for an apology that may never come. When you can think of them without bitterness, but also without longing. Here is what happens when you finally release them. You reclaim your time, your focus, and your mental space. You stop living in reaction to their moods, their silence, and their decisions. You begin to see new opportunities, new connections, and new paths that were always there, but blocked by your fixation. You slowly rebuild your sense of self without their voice echoing in your head. Letting go is an act of strength, not weakness. It is saying, I refuse to live as an option when I know I am meant to be a priority. And while it may hurt now, that pain is temporary. It protects you from a lifetime of quiet disrespect. The reality is, you can love someone deeply and still recognize they are not good for you. You can be grateful for what they taught you, for the moments you shared, and still walk away. Self-love means knowing when to stop watering a dead plant, no matter how beautiful it once was. In the end, you will see that letting go is not about losing them. It is about finally finding yourself again. And that is a trade worth making every single time. Because even after you let go of them, there is still one voice that can keep you trapped if you are not careful. The one living quietly inside your own mind. Number 6. How to silence your inner critic. What if I told you that the loudest, most damaging voice you will ever hear is not from an enemy, a rival, or someone who dislikes you, but from you? That voice in your head that tells you you are not good enough, that you are going to fail, that you should not even bother trying. That is your inner critic, and if you do not learn how to manage it, it will sabotage every step you try to take forward. The strange thing is, the inner critic often sounds like it is trying to help. It uses phrases like, be realistic. Do not embarrass yourself. You are not ready yet. But underneath those words is fear. Fear of change. Fear of risk. Fear of stepping into the unknown. That voice convinces you to stay small, to play safe, to live inside a box where nothing new can hurt you, but also where nothing new can grow you. The Stoics had a different approach. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Your inner critic is not an outside force. It is part of your mind. And if you have power over your mind, then you also have power over that voice. The problem is, most of us never challenge it. We accept its words as truth instead of opinion, forgetting that just because a thought appears does not mean it deserves authority. One powerful step is learning to separate yourself from your thoughts. Imagine them as clouds moving across the sky. You are not the clouds. You are the sky itself. The critic may appear, but you do not have to hold on to it. You can watch it come and go without granting it the power to define you. Silencing your inner critic does not mean pretending it is not there. If you try to ignore it completely, it often grows louder. Instead, you confront it. You question it. You ask, is this thought actually true? Where is the proof? Is this wisdom, or is this just fear wearing the mask of logic? Most of the time, your critic's words collapse quickly under honest examination. Another technique is to replace self-criticism with self-instruction. Instead of saying, I cannot do this, you shift to, I do not know how to do this yet, but I can learn. The critic shuts doors. Self-instruction opens them. It moves your attention from limitation to possibility, from final judgment to ongoing growth. It is also important to recognize where your inner critic learned its voice. Sometimes it is the echo of a parent's harsh words, a teacher's doubt, a past humiliation, or a painful failure that left a scar. When you see where that voice came from, you stop treating it like sacred truth. You recognize it as a learned pattern, not a fixed destiny. Self-love plays a massive role here. When you genuinely value yourself, you no longer accept being spoken to, even by your own mind, in ways you would never tolerate from someone else. You start to replace the inner critic with an inner coach. The coach still shows you where you can improve, but without tearing you down in the process. Here is the reality. Your critic will likely never disappear completely. It is part of being human, but it can be trained. With time, practice, and conscious effort, you can turn its volume down so low that it becomes background noise instead of the main voice you listen to. Practical steps help with this. Journal your thoughts so you can see patterns on paper. Practice mindfulness so you can catch the critic's voice the moment it shows up instead of hours later. Surround yourself with people who speak to you with honesty and encouragement so you can hear a different kind of voice more often. Most importantly, take consistent action, because action proves the critic wrong far more effectively than any argument. Every time you move forward in spite of fear, you are teaching your mind, I am capable. I am stronger than this doubt. Remember this. Your inner critic is not there to predict your future. It is there to protect your comfort zone. But comfort zones are where dreams quietly go to die. Every time you lower its volume and step forward anyway, you are saying, I am worthy. I am allowed to take up space in this world. One day you will look back at everything you have done, the risks you took, the growth you created, and you will realize that the critic was never telling the truth. In that moment, its power over you begins to shatter. Until then, keep showing up. Keep speaking to yourself with strength and clarity. Keep proving through your actions that you are far more than your doubts. We have covered a lot so far, and I hope these insights are helping you see yourself in a new light. If this journey resonates with you, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What has been your biggest challenge in learning to love yourself? Share your story and let us support each other on this path. And if you have not already, hit that subscribe button so you do not miss more wisdom like this. All right, let us continue. Number 7, the role of self-care in building self-worth. When was the last time you truly took care of yourself? Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Not just eating when you are hungry, or sleeping when you are exhausted, but actually treating yourself like someone worth protecting, worth investing in, worth loving. For many people, self-care has been reduced to a marketing slogan, something you do on a spa day or when burnout hits and you have no choice. But real self-care is much deeper than that. It is not an occasional treat. It is a daily declaration of your worth. Here is the truth. You cannot build genuine self-worth without self-care. The two are inseparable. When you consistently neglect your needs, you send yourself a quiet message, I am not a priority. Over time, that message hardens into belief. You start to accept less from others because you already accepted less from yourself. But when you consistently care for yourself, when you feed your body nourishing food, move it with intention, rest it fully, when you feed your mind with knowledge, and guard your emotions from constant poison, you reinforce a completely different belief. I matter. My well-being matters. My life matters. The Stoics understood this principle, even if they never used the modern phrase self-care. Seneca wrote that no one can have everything they want, but we can learn to use what we have wisely and cheerfully. In other words, caring for yourself is not about indulging every desire. It is about mastering the art of using what you already have to strengthen your body, sharpen your mind, and steady your heart. Real self-care is not always glamorous. Sometimes it means going to bed earlier instead of scrolling endlessly through your phone. Sometimes it means cooking a simple, healthy meal instead of reaching again for fast food. Sometimes it means turning down an invitation because what you truly need is a quiet night of rest and reflection. One of the most powerful aspects of self-care is that it builds trust with yourself. Every time you choose long-term well-being over short-term comfort, you are proving to yourself that you can be counted on. And self-trust is one of the deepest foundations of self-worth. You cannot feel truly good about yourself if, deep down, you know you keep breaking promises to your own body, mind, and soul. Think of self-care as an investment account. Every healthy meal, every workout, every good night of sleep, every moment of journaling or meditation, each of these is a small deposit. They accumulate slowly over time, compounding into confidence, resilience, and a quiet, unshakable sense of self-respect. And just like any account, neglect drains it faster than you expect. Skip enough deposits and you start to feel the loss, not in money, but in your energy, your mood, and your self-image. Another crucial point, self-care is not just about what you do. It is also about what you stop doing. Stop exposing yourself to toxic relationships that constantly drain you. Stop overloading your schedule until there is no room for rest or reflection. Stop feeding your mind with non-stop negativity through gossip, doom scrolling, or drama-filled content. This is where self-care overlaps with boundaries, because you cannot truly care for yourself while letting everything and everyone invade your mental space. And here is the paradox. When you take care of yourself first, you actually have more to give to others. You cannot pour from an empty cup. People who think self-care is selfish have it backwards. Neglecting yourself is what makes you unreliable, exhausted, and quietly resentful. Loving yourself enough to rest, to recharge, and to say no when necessary, that is what makes you a stronger friend, partner, parent, and leader. Practical self-care does not require huge amounts of time or money. It requires consistency. 10 minutes of meditation a day is better than doing it once a month. Preparing one healthy meal is better than promising you will start next Monday for the 100th time. A 20-minute walk in nature can do more for your mind than hours of mindless scrolling. Small daily acts of self-respect add up in ways that big, rare gestures never will. So ask yourself, if someone could see every decision you make about your health, your energy, and your peace of mind, would they be able to tell that you love yourself? If the answer is no, then you know exactly where to start. Self-care is not a reward you give yourself after you have earned it. It is the foundation that allows you to keep going, keep growing, and keep becoming the kind of person you admire. The moment you decide that your body's worth nourishing, your mind is worth protecting, and your heart is worth guarding, you step into a new level of self-worth. And once you experience that, you will never again accept a life where you abandon yourself to keep everyone else happy. Because one clear sign that you truly value yourself is this: you can be alone without feeling empty. Number 8, learning to enjoy your own company. When was the last time you were alone and actually enjoyed it? Not distracted by your phone, not numbing the silence with constant background noise, not rushing to fill the space with someone else's presence, but truly alone, at peace, and comfortable in your own skin. For many people, even the idea of being alone feels uncomfortable or even frightening. They treat solitude like a punishment, something to escape from as quickly as possible. But the truth is, learning to enjoy your own company is one of the greatest forms of freedom you will ever experience. Here is why. When you depend on constant company, attention, or validation from others to feel okay, you have handed over your emotional stability. You have made your peace conditional on something you cannot control, the actions and moods of other people. But when you know how to be with yourself, to genuinely appreciate your own thoughts, your own activities, your own presence, you take that power back. Your sense of happiness stops being tied to who texts you, who invites you, or who notices you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." The Stoics understood that the richest source of peace is not found in any external location, but in the ability to be still with yourself. Yet most of us fill every quiet moment with noise. We avoid silence because silence forces us to hear the truth about our habits, our fears, and our desires. But facing that truth is exactly how you grow. Enjoying your own company is not about isolation. It is not about cutting yourself off from love, friendship, or community. It is about removing the neediness that makes you cling to others out of fear instead of choosing them from a place of genuine desire. Time alone is not a void you must hurry to fill. It is a blank canvas you get to paint on, with your own thoughts, your own values, and your own choices. You can start small. Take a short walk without music, without a podcast, just you and your breathing. Have a simple meal alone, without reaching for your phone every few seconds. Spend 10 minutes journaling about what you feel, what you want, and what you are afraid of. These small moments teach you slowly that your own presence is not something to escape, but something you can trust. And as the external noise fades, clarity begins to appear about who you are, what you value, and what you truly want from your life and from your relationships. When you learn to be alone without feeling lonely, your relationships begin to quietly transform. You no longer enter them from a place of lack. You stop asking people to fill the gaps in your self-worth. Instead, you bring a sense of wholeness into every connection. The process starts small. It might mean going for a walk alone, without your headphones, listening to your breathing and your thoughts. It might mean taking yourself out for a meal and resisting the urge to scroll endlessly on your phone. It could be spending an evening reading or journaling instead of defaulting to social media for distraction. At first, it will feel strange. That is completely okay. Growth always feels awkward before it feels natural. The key is shifting your perspective. Time alone is not a blank void. It is a canvas. You can use it to reflect, to plan, to create, or simply to rest and breathe. As you do this, you begin to see yourself differently, not as someone who needs constant distraction, but as someone who can offer themselves real fulfillment. There is also a deeper shift that happens when you truly enjoy your own company. You start trusting yourself more. Think about it honestly. If you cannot stand being alone with your own thoughts, how can you fully trust your own judgment? By embracing solitude, you build that trust. You learn that you can handle emotions, solve problems on your own, and be your own source of comfort and stability. Another gift of solitude is clarity. When you are surrounded by constant noise, whether it is conversation, notifications, or other people's opinions, it becomes almost impossible to hear your inner voice. But in stillness, the static fades. You begin to see your life more clearly. You can recognize what you truly want, as opposed to what you were told you should want. That clarity makes you stronger and more decisive, and far less vulnerable to manipulation and pressure. Self-love and solitude are deeply connected. The more you value yourself, the more you value your time alone. And the more you value your time alone, the less you tolerate situations and people that constantly drain you. It becomes a cycle of empowerment. Once it starts, it is difficult to stop. If being alone still scares you, start gently asking yourself why. Is it because you do not like your own thoughts? Is it because you have tied your identity so tightly to others that you are unsure who you are without them? Or is it because no one ever taught you that your own presence is enough? Whatever the reason, know this clearly. It can be unlearned and replaced with a quiet confidence that comes from being your own best friend. Here is the truth. If you can learn to enjoy your own company, you will never be truly lonely again. People may come and go. Circumstances may change. But you will always have a steady, reliable source of peace within yourself. And that is a kind of power no one can ever take away from you. Number 9, releasing the need for external validation. Why do we allow the opinions of others to hold so much power over our hearts? Why can one compliment lift our entire day, while one criticism ruins our entire week? If you have ever replayed a negative comment again and again, or found yourself constantly checking your phone to see who liked your post, then you already know the trap of external validation. It feels good for a brief moment, like a quick hit of dopamine, but it also creates dependence. And dependence, when it comes to your worth, is a quiet form of weakness. Here is the harsh truth. If your sense of worth is built on the approval of other people, you are giving them the remote control to your emotions. The moment their opinions change, and they will, your confidence crumbles with them. One day they praise you, the next day they criticize you, and your emotional state swings back and forth with their moods. That is not freedom. That is emotional slavery. The Stoics understood this danger a long time ago. Epictetus warned that if you truly want to be free, you cannot spend your life chained to what others think. We are human. We all enjoy being liked. But freedom means this. Your sense of worth does not rise and fall like a stock price based on other people's reactions. You still value connection, but you are no longer enslaved by it. The truth is, external validation will always be unstable because people are unstable. Their moods change. Their interests shift. their attention wanders. If you build your identity on that unstable ground, you will spend your life chasing something you can never hold. But when you build it on your own standards, your own effort, and your own growth, it becomes steady and unshakable. So ask yourself honestly, if no one ever clapped for you again, would you still do what you are doing? Would you still chase your dreams, live by your values, and fight for your goals? If the answer is no, it is time to reframe your motivation, because the only applause that truly matters is the one you give yourself when you know you have lived a day in full alignment with who you want to be. And here is the beautiful part. When you stop needing constant reassurance, your relationships improve. People feel safer with you because they know you are there by choice, not from desperation. You are no longer begging for their approval. You are simply sharing the journey. Number 10. How to forgive yourself and move forward. How many nights have you stayed awake replaying your mistakes like a broken record? How many times have you whispered to yourself, if only I could go back and do it differently? We all carry moments we wish we could erase, words spoken in anger, opportunities we avoided, choices made from fear instead of courage. No matter how deeply we regret them, the past does not change. It is already written. What we can change is how we relate to what has been written. Self-forgiveness is one of the hardest skills you will ever learn, not because it is complicated, but because it requires facing yourself without excuses. It means looking directly at your flaws, your failures, and your regrets. Not to punish yourself further, but to finally release yourself from the prison of constant self-judgment. The Stoics understood this well. Seneca warned that the greatest obstacle to living fully is always looking toward tomorrow while being trapped inside yesterday. If you spend your life stuck inside old mistakes, you rob yourself of today's potential. The truth is, holding on to guilt can feel strangely productive. We tell ourselves that by feeling bad enough, we are somehow paying for what we did. But guilt does not fix the past. It does not undo the harm. All it really does is chain you emotionally to a moment that no longer exists. Forgiveness is different. It is not pretending the mistake never happened. It is learning the lesson so deeply that you no longer need to repeat it. Forgiving yourself begins with honesty. No sugarcoating. No mental gymnastics to turn yourself into the hero of every story. You acknowledge the wrong. You accept your role in it. You sit with the discomfort instead of running from it. This is not weakness. This is courage. Most people avoid this step because it hurts, but pain is often the doorway to growth. By taking full responsibility, you remove the need to hide from yourself. Once you have faced the truth, the next step is self-compassion. And this is not just a feel-good idea. It is a practical necessity. If you are constantly berating yourself, how can you expect to have the energy or clarity to do better? You would never tell a friend, you are a complete failure every single day and expect them to thrive. Yet so many of us speak to ourselves in exactly that way, without realizing the damage. Self-compassion means speaking to yourself the way you would speak to someone you deeply care about, someone who is imperfect, but trying, learning, and worthy of another chance. The Stoics also reminded us that mistakes are simply part of being human. We are all still learning. We will all fall short. If you can offer patience to strangers, why deny that same patience to yourself? Forgiveness also requires action. If your mistake hurt someone, make amends where possible. Apologize sincerely, not to erase your guilt, but to honor the experience of the other person. If the harm cannot be undone, Then commit to different choices moving forward. Let your regret fuel your growth instead of your self-hatred. This is how forgiveness stops being a feeling and becomes a principle in your life. Perhaps the hardest part is letting go of the identity that your mistake gave you. Sometimes we hold on to guilt and shame because they feel familiar. We start to define ourselves by our worst moments, but you are not a single event. You are a collection of choices, efforts, and new beginnings. The past chapter is over. The pen is still in your hand. When you finally release the weight of self-condemnation, you create space for possibility. You can focus on building instead of constantly repairing. You can take risks again because you no longer believe that one misstep decides your worth forever. Most importantly, you can be present. Self-forgiveness is not about erasing your past. It is about refusing to let it own you. So ask yourself this: if a friend you love made the same mistake and was genuinely trying to grow from it, would you tell them to live in shame forever? Or would you urge them to stand up, take what they learned, and move forward with strength? That is exactly what you owe yourself. Not denial, not forgetting, but the grace to keep going. The moment you choose to forgive yourself, you reclaim your power. You stop being defined by what you did and start being defined by what you choose to do next. That is one of the truest forms of freedom. Number 11, building confidence through consistent action. What if I told you that confidence is not something you are born with, and it is not something you suddenly find one day waiting for you? What if confidence is something you build slowly, brick by brick, through the small, often boring actions you take every single day? The people you admire for their confidence are not fearless superheroes. They are ordinary people who have quietly stacked enough proof over time that they can trust themselves to show up and do the work. The problem is, most people wait for confidence before acting. They think, once I feel ready, then I will go for it. But that is not how it works. You do not act because you feel confident. You feel confident because you acted. Confidence is the side effect of keeping promises to yourself. When you know deep in your bones, I did what I said I would do. Whether anyone noticed or not, a quiet strength builds inside you. The Stoics understood this idea. Epictetus warned that if you truly wish to improve yourself, you must be willing to be seen as foolish in the beginning. Confidence often grows fastest in the moments when you act anyway, even while your hands shake, even while your voice trembles. Most of us fear failure because we treat it like a final verdict, but failure is not a verdict. It is training. Every attempt that falls short is another rep for your courage. It teaches you something about the path and something about yourself. Anyone can take action when they feel motivated and excited. Real confidence is built on the difficult days when you feel tired, doubtful, or uninspired, and you still show up in a small way. You write one paragraph. You make one phone call. You take one step forward instead of staying stuck. These small choices send a powerful message. I can depend on myself even when it is hard. Start small and scale slowly. You do not need a grand gesture. You need a consistent pattern. Speak up once in a meeting where you usually stay silent. Go to the gym for 10 minutes instead of waiting for the perfect routine. Practice the skill you are afraid of for a short, focused session instead of avoiding it completely. Every time you do this, you are adding another brick to your foundation. Over time, these bricks form something solid, a sense of confidence that is rooted in reality, not fantasy. And here is the irony. When you build confidence from the inside out, Other people will notice. They are naturally drawn to those who move with quiet certainty, who do not constantly seek permission to exist or approval before acting. But by the time their attention arrives, you will not be chasing it. You will already have your own approval. So ask yourself today, what is one action you have been avoiding because you do not feel ready yet? What would happen if you did it before you felt confident? If you commit to repeating that process again and again, you will not need to go looking for confidence. You will become it. Confidence is not a gift you wait for. It is a muscle you train. Every rep you put in, no matter how small, makes you stronger. Build it through consistent action, and it will carry you farther than you imagined. Number 12, practicing gratitude for who you are. When was the last time you paused, not to wish for what you do not have, but to acknowledge what you already are? We live in a world that constantly trains us to see what is missing. Social media, advertising, even casual conversations remind you of the gap between where you are and where you think you should be. Growth is important, but here is the paradox. You will never feel truly fulfilled until you learn to be deeply grateful for yourself, exactly as you are right now. Gratitude for who you are is not about pretending you are perfect. It is about seeing your worth without needing to earn it first. It is recognizing the battles you have fought, the storms you have survived, and the values you kept when it would have been easier to abandon them. It is easy to appreciate others, their talents, their beauty, their achievements. But how often do you pause and appreciate yourself with the same enthusiasm? A wise reminder says, "It is not the person who has too little who is truly poor, but the one who always craves more." Apply this inwardly. The poorest version of you is the one who cannot see your value unless someone else reflects it back. The richest version of you is the one who can stand alone. Look at your own reflection and quietly say, "I am enough." Not because everything in your life is perfect, but because you recognize the strength it took just to still be here. Gratitude for yourself changes the way you live. Without it, you approach life from a place of lack, always chasing, always comparing, always feeling behind. With it, you begin living from a place of abundance, not because you have everything, but because you realize you already are everything you need to begin. From that foundation, growth becomes a choice, not a desperate attempt to fill a void. Start with simple acknowledgement. Write down 3 things you appreciate about yourself each morning, not just physical traits or skills, but qualities of character. Maybe it is your ability to keep going when things are difficult. Maybe it is your loyalty to the people you love. Maybe it is the fact that no matter how many times life has knocked you down, you have always found a way to stand back up. These reminders are not vanity. They are fuel. They strengthen the voice inside you that says, "I am worthy," and quiet the one that whispers, "I am not enough." Gratitude for who you are also helps you separate your identity from your mistakes. Too many people define themselves by their worst moment, replaying regrets until they become woven into their self-image. But you are not a single bad decision, just as a tree is not defined by one dead branch. Gratitude shifts your focus to the growth, not just the scars. The Stoics understood the power of perspective. They trained themselves to notice the good that already existed, rather than being consumed by what was absent. This is not complacency, it is clarity. You can pursue improvement without despising your current self. In fact, self-improvement works best when it is built on self-respect, not self-loathing. There is another benefit. When you are grateful for who you are less shaken by outside judgment. Criticism may still come, but it does not cut as deeply because your sense of self-worth is no longer up for negotiation. You know your strengths, you acknowledge your weaknesses, and you hold both without shame. This is emotional resilience at its finest. Of course, this takes practice. We are conditioned to focus on the negative, on the 10 things we dislike, rather than the 100 things we have done right. Gratitude reverses that lens. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Soon you will catch yourself pausing in quiet moments thinking, I am proud of who I am becoming. That is when you know the shift is real. So today, instead of measuring yourself against someone else's highlight reel, measure yourself against the person you used to be. Look at the growth, however small. Appreciate the resilience, however unnoticed. Celebrate the small victories no one clapped for, but that still mattered. Because here is the truth. You will never love yourself if you keep postponing that love until you become better, richer, stronger, or more successful. The practice of gratitude teaches you to love yourself now, in progress, in motion, in imperfection. And that love becomes the foundation for every other success you build. At the end of the day, everything we have explored comes back to one simple truth. The world will often treat you the way you treat yourself. If you ignore your needs, others will too. If you cross your own boundaries, others will feel free to cross them as well. But if you set the standard, protect your energy, and choose to value yourself above all else, you teach the world exactly how you deserve to be treated. Loving yourself more than anyone else does not mean you stop loving others. It means you finally love from a place of strength rather than desperation. It means you no longer chase approval or cling to people who quietly drain you. It means your happiness is built on a foundation no one can shake because it comes from within you. The Stoics knew that self-respect is at the core of freedom. No one is truly free if they are not master of themselves, and mastery begins with self-love, the kind that is disciplined, steady, and rooted in gratitude for who you already are. So here is my challenge for you. Starting today, stop waiting for permission to love yourself. Stop delaying it until you lose the weight, land the job, or find the relationship. Love yourself now, in the middle of the chaos, with your imperfections, with your scars, with all the ways you are still learning. Because when you do, every goal you chase and every relationship you build will come from a place of abundance, not emptiness. Remember, the relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for every other connection in your life. Treat yourself like someone you are proud to know. Protect yourself like someone you deeply care about. And invest in yourself like someone you believe in completely. That is not arrogance. That is alignment. Now it is your turn to live it. If this video has helped you on your journey to self-love, I would love to hear about it. Drop a comment below and share what resonated most with you. And if you have not already, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you do not miss more wisdom like this. Remember, you have the power to transform the relationship you have with yourself. Start today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.